Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today we're going to discuss the way artificial intelligence is set to transform infrastructure performance. Now, in the short time since generative AI tools such as ChatGPT and an array of AI-driven apps have emerged and become mainstream in our lives, all of our daily interactions with data has really changed dramatically. There should therefore be absolutely no doubt in anyone's mind that AI has the power to truly transform the way we live, work and play. And notwithstanding the clear and potentially well-founded fears around the unintended consequences of accelerating the use of AI technology, few can rule out the potential for change that is around the corner. So what does this technology hold for infrastructure in the design, the construction and of course management of our assets? It's a sector which, after all, has been synonymous with slow digital uptake and poor productivity and performance for decades. Well, it's clear that the use of digitization and data across the planning, design, delivery and deployment of major infrastructure programs is already becoming key to improving outcomes as we move beyond the use of building information modeling towards greater use and exploitation of data and digital systems across the sector. But what is it actually going to deliver to the industry as we strive to build things better? Well, my guest today truly understands this potential. Rene Morkos is Chief Executive of Alice Technologies, which has developed the world's first generative construction simulator. And we'll come back to that in a moment, I'm sure, and find out exactly what that is. But he's a professor at Stanford University, where he gained a PhD in, amongst other things, artificial intelligence techniques, and is a true champion for technological change across the entire infrastructure delivery process. So, Rene, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for inviting me. Great to be here.
Well, Rene, I set the scene in terms of the potential for AI and the use of data and digital tools to transform construction. I mean, did I over-egg it? Did I underestimate the power? I mean, how do you see the infrastructure future?
I think what's happening to construction today is what happened to manufacturing in the 80s. And so if you recall or think back, maybe not recall, but think back to what manufacturing looked like in the early 1900s or even late 1800s. Horrible jobs. You know, people in dark factories, they're doing repetitive stuff for 18 hours a day, unsafe, really sort of unrewarding. And then you look at it today and you've got high tech robotics factories that are like clean. You can have gardens in these factories these days. And that's happened because I think manufacturing went through digitization, integration, automation, and that's exactly what's happening in construction today. Right. Companies like mine and others out there are slowly building out or digitizing various parts of the puzzle: supply chain, the design, the construction, the procurement, the financing. Like all of that stuff is slowly getting more and more digitized, and that digitization is resulting in I think an incredible opportunity.
Yeah. Well, getting value from the data, it's been described as one of the greatest emerging trends in the sector, but also one of the greatest challenges facing, it's a very traditional sector. I mean, clearly AI tools are key, but, are we facing a technology or a cultural challenge?
It's a good question. I think it's both. I don't think the humans by themselves can solve it. I don't think machines by themselves can solve it. So it's both. I think that if you look at what's happened since basically 2017 till today, you've seen a major shift in just the way that construction companies are viewing innovation. So suddenly you've seen these titles like in 2017, 16, it was like VDC versus a BIM manager. Then it was digitization. We have a chief digitization officer. And now you've got the innovation officers and information officers. You're seeing old school construction companies are building out, are hiring data scientists.
Yeah. You work with a large number of construction companies. I mean, Skanska, Bouygues, Costain, and your asset owners you work with at HS2, for instance. Where are we on the journey? Where, as an industry, where are we on the AI journey? I mean, is the UK, for instance, is it ahead of the rest of the world, or are we behind the rest of the world?
I think the UK market, so we do a lot of business in the UK. I think the UK market has a few things that are very specific and interesting to it. I think that the government mandated use of BIM helped push the industry forward from a technological perspective. Interestingly enough, like I don't think just only the fact that the BIM is being used is like, oh, great, that's all. I think that the side effects of that were that people started looking at, okay, well, what can we attach the BIM to? What else can we do besides BIM?
Yeah,
And so the UK, I think, is more advanced than many of the countries we look at. I think the UK is in the top 5%. I think if you look at technological advancement, I think the Nordic regions. So if you look at Finland, if you look at Norway, Sweden, I think they're the most advanced just as a region. And I think the UK would be sort of just behind that. But we've got a long way to go. If you look at other fields, I think that one of the things that our field, like we're still catching up on, is that even the chief innovation officers and digitization officers oftentimes don't understand the underlying technology. What makes a neural net work? How does vision, recognition work? What is machine learning, right? What is deep learning? I think that it will take some time for us to build out the underlying theoretical and technical know-how that we'll need enable this change. It's early innings. I really don't think that we were doing anything with tech till 2017. I think that this latest wave of ChatGPT and LLMs is amazing. I think one of the biggest problems in our industry is unstructured data, and the like super strength of these technologies is unstructured data, or like sort of sorting through or making sense of unstructured data. And so that's the thing that's I think really incredible about it, but very early innings.
Yeah, because it all started with the in the UK, the government's mandate for building information modelling in 2016 really kind of, I suppose, in many ways set the UK on a path towards embracing data. That presumably has given it quite a leap ahead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that like I said, the BIM mandate from the government wasn't just, hey, everybody's going to start using BIM, which is great, but there's sort of secondary and tertiary effects, which was people were like, wait, maybe we can use technology. Right? Yeah. Why don't we do that? Why don't we try that? Yeah.
But I suppose like much of the rest of the world, the UK government is certainly sees investment in infrastructure as the key to driving economic growth. But of course, like so many governments, there isn't a huge amount of public sector capital funding available. So how do you see technology helping to bridge this gap between the aspiration that governments have and their ability to deliver?
I don't know if I'd agree with that. If you look at our work with HS2, I mean, they're doing an incredible job in taking public money and promoting, not just using the HS2 project to just build a high-speed rail, but they're actually using it to learn about technology, learn about technology implementation. They're using it to take lessons learned from one contract to give it to another. Yeah, I think that the UK government has actually done a great job, at least with this project, or I guess projects, right? It's not one, but in promoting, helping, formalizing AI and other technologies in the field. So.
But that said, the reality is the reason that the HS2 project, given we're talking about that, the reason that was stopped, the second phase was stopped, was simply because it was all costing too much money. So I suppose that begs the question of what can technology do to reduce that cost?
I don't think it's just technology. I think that you need process change, educational change, and technological change. One of the reasons that construction is not digitized, it's not because we're lazy and stupid. It just happens to be that our field is harder to digitize than other fields. And so I think if you're looking at what's happening, like, yes, it's going to cost more than we thought it would, but 98% of projects in the world have that problem.
Yeah.
According to the McKinsey study. So it's not like HS2 was by itself uniquely somehow bad. It's just they were performing according to what everyone else is doing, right? I think to the contrary, right? I think that without technology, those delays or those cost overruns would have been greater.
Yeah.
But here's a question: does how you build it affect how much it costs to build?
Well, yes.
Right. So how on earth are we doing our estimates without our schedules?
Right.
Think about it. You create an estimate. The estimate's not connected to your schedule. You change the schedule. Does that change your estimate? No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which brings us to Alice. the business that you founded, which loosely stands for Artificial Intelligence Construction Engineering. I mean, let's get into it. You've invented the world's first generative construction simulator. What is that, Rene? give us a clue.
Yeah, so listeners might be familiar with BIM. So the big deal with BIM was that it's object-oriented and it's parametric. Object-oriented means that the software understands that the column is an object, it's made of concrete, and it's the floor, it has properties. Parametric means that you can change the parameters, like height of a column, you change the height of the column, and then the model automatically updates. All the columns change height, the 3D model updates, the cross sections update, the elevations update, the kind of ripple through effect. Big deal. Super like powerful tech. This has been done in design for the last, call it 40 years. Never been done in construction. And that's where we come in. We're the first in the world to invent a parametric or generative simulator. What that means is you can change parameters. For the first time ever, you can say resequence, hit the button, and it will resequence for you. You can say add crane, and it will resequence that change for you. You can say change production rates, change critical path. You can try overtime. You can basically tweak parameters, and it will basically run those simulations for you.
So we've been through the BIM revolution, and Alice claims to be the construction equivalent in terms of rethinking the process delivery.
Well, I like what you said. I mean, we also state this. What BIM does for design, Alice does for construction.
Right. So that means basically it speeds it up. It makes it more accessible to more people, improving collaboration, etc. Those are the kind of things you're talking about.
Well, for us, we minimizing risk. And so imagine you could build it before you build it.
Yeah.
You could build it 10, 20, 30 different times and really understand how the project behaves. So that's one, I think, big deal. Improving margins. So you can minimize idle times. You can tell it to finish certain key payment milestones earlier. So minimize risk, improve project margins, and then mitigate delays.
Yeah. Because the reality is that you can have a fantastic design, but when that design hits the reality of construction, stuff changes, and you need to be able to respond to that.
Exactly. Yeah. That ability to do the rapid change automatically is like the superpower of it. Imagine the cost of exploring an option is zero. Imagine that you could just literally look at your Primavera P6 file or Microsoft project file and say, reschedule.
Yeah.
Give me 6 different options for how I could build it.
Right. Which, of course, you can do in the design phase, but what you're saying is this is actually being able to do it in the construction phase.
Bingo. That's exactly it. Yep.
So you just launched a new product called Alice Core, which is a collaboration with Oracle and aims to transform construction scheduling. How do you describe the difference?
Oh, it's huge. We developed originally a BIM-based simulator, but we sat down and thought to ourselves, look, what if we could take all of that AI juice, right, all those AI algorithms, and apply it directly to an existing P6 schedule? So wouldn't that be great? You could simply run simulations, automatically. You could just ingest a P6 and suddenly parameterize it. Mm-hmm. We actually didn't know if it was possible. It's tricky because you got to take the file, the schedule, and convert that into a constraint model. So because you're effectively asking to do constraint-based transformation inside a task-based world.
Right.
Existing schedules were not designed to do that. And so, long story short, we figured out how to do it. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, you can just take an existing schedule, ingest it into the system, and then rerun it.
You know? Well, to give us some examples of where that's succeeding, then just in very simple terms. This is obviously a complex area, but can you give us some very specific examples about how it was before and how it is now?
Yeah, I mean, let's assume that you're building a data center, right? Or let's assume that you're building a battery plant or an infrastructure job, a highway, bridge, road. And then, today you say, okay, I want to figure out, I got 19 bridges that I need to build for this project. We're doing a job like that. And then I want to figure out, how do I minimize resource jumping between these bridges? Or alternatively, how do I increase the resource utilization that I have across these bridges. Um, you might say, I get paid on bridges 2, 4, and 17. How do I bring those milestones in sooner? Today, any one of these questions, I mean, you name it, just name a question, whatever it is you're trying to answer, involves somebody sitting there with, 11,000 tasks, deleting and redrawing arrows across, thousands of tasks, which is just mind-numbingly boring, error-prone, and not very effective.
Right.
And with Alice, you simply just ingest the schedule, right? And ask the question. Now, let's be clear. There is some setup time depending on what you're trying to do. So in the fastest solutions or the fastest parametric changes, it's exactly what I said. You ingest it, hit the button, and it reschedules for you. In certain cases, for example, if you're trying to resequence, right? Let's say I want to resequence across 3,000 tasks. There's some setup that you need to do, and for about 6,000 tasks, it's about an hour worth of work.
So you've raised some more money recently for the business to enable it to invest and grow. I mean, what does success look like for Alice? Is this a very young, growing, fast-growing business which is going to be absorbed into something else bigger, or are you going for world domination yourself?
It's a great question. I mean, for me, it was never about like making a quick buck. I mean, there's many easier ways to make money. For me, I always wanted to be part of everything you started the conversation with, which is this technological change that's upon us, this AI that's being brought into construction, the field sort of maturing. I want our company to be an instrumental piece of that puzzle and helping the industry move forward. And that's basically what I want Alice to do. Okay. Specifically, in terms of scheduling, we want to change how the world schedules construction projects, and we think we have a much better way to do it. It's much more efficient, faster, easier, and our clients agree.
Well, it's a great time to be doing that kind of thing because there's an awful lot of money around the world being invested or that needs to be invested in infrastructure, and getting these things more efficient is key to that. Let's talk a bit about you, Rene. You're talking to me today from California, and you've had an interesting and varied life and career, arguably a whole podcast worth of life and career, I imagine. But anyway, you were born in communist Czechoslovakia to a Lebanese civil engineering father, and you grew up in a war zone before ignoring your father's advice by studying civil engineering in Beirut. And you cut your teeth working on construction sites around the world, and notably in war-torn Afghanistan as a chief architect, chief engineer, head of construction, anything that they threw at you by the sound of it. I mean, would you recommend a career in engineering?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. I think that what I would recommend is getting into engineering and looking for what's on the cutting edge. And that's going to be like, I mean, I even, almost shy away from, the AI buzzword because everything's AI these days, but digitization, if you're looking at what's happening in every single field, it's getting more and more digitized. Whatever you're studying, if you're mechanical engineering or whatever it is, there's certain cutting edge stuff that's happening in that field. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Yeah. I would recommend taking whatever it is that you're passionate about and doing a minor in computer science.
All right. I mean, you've talked about the challenges of working in a fragmented construction sector, but also the challenges of working in the when you're rebuilding in a war zone. I mean, does that environment sometimes make this difficult environment? Does it sometimes make decision making simpler?
That's an interesting question. Does building in a war zone or trying to build? I don't think so. I think that the decision making is you have less time, less resources, less. So there's more pressure when you're making decisions in a war zone. On do you send your men into a dangerous zone to do a project, and then deal with the after effects if something happens, right, or not, and you have like 5 minutes to make a decision. I mean. Yeah, I think there's a lot at stake, and I think those are similarities between running projects in a war zone and building a company, right? But I don't think it makes it simpler. No, I think that it's more like crisp. You're more focused maybe because the stakes are so high, and so that's maybe something that's like quote easier, but at the same time, those decisions can be very complicated.
Well, looking back at that time you spent working in Afghanistan, but also the time that you've spent working in the construction sector, on the tools, I suppose, on the construction sites. I mean, what were your biggest learnings from those early days?
I think that my learnings in Afghanistan were not just construction related. And so I think one of the first things I learned is don't judge a person by their bank account. You know, don't judge per person by whether or not they can read or write. Um,
Hmm.
I learned a lot about like human strength. I think, those folks that are still in Afghanistan today, right? Like, I think, we tend to not or tend to not realize that, you know, if you work hard, there's a very high probability that you'll still advance in your career. But there's people in Afghanistan for whom that is not the case. They could work all they want. They're never going to change anything about their life. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I don't know. I think just maybe being a little bit more grateful at where I am, and I think what changed for me is just the wanting to do something good or impact. Right.
Okay, yeah. Well, you found your way into the world of data and AI via a PhD at Stanford University post Kabul. I mean, how did that happen? Because how did you swap working, doing some great, really important work in a war zone for one of the world's most prestigious seats of learning?
Yeah, I mean that's funny, right? I went from Kabul to USC, so I did my master's there. It's a good question. I mean, I remember cycling to class, and I'm like, man, if like my guys could see me right now, like, I was just like big cheese boss managing 114 people, and now I'm like on this like squeaky bike doing homework. Uh, it was a big change, for sure. Like it was a big change in a lot of different ways. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I like change is the foundation of growth, isn't it? And so, like, I like
Hmm.
that experience. First of all, 13 months in Afghanistan is more than enough. I had some pretty close calls, on three occasions. I don't think would want to spend longer than that. It was really enough. Took me, 2.5 years to just psychologically, I think, equalize with the experience. Um, so it was time. It was time for something new. I think the motivation I gained from that experience was what drove me to like end up applying to Stanford. Um, and then being at Stanford was again a very like different. A PhD is just such a different um, endeavor than anything else. You're sort of by yourself in a room thinking about stuff,
Yeah.
and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was, right? And then I switched hats and became, an entrepreneur, and now I teach at Stanford as well. So I think like our society maybe it's unfortunate that we're not more open to people switching careers or switching roles. Um,
Yeah.
but at Alice Technologies, we definitely let people do that. We have definitely folks that come to us and like, I want to be a product manager. We're like, we've never done it before. I know, I still want to be a product manager. We're like, okay, good luck.
Yeah. But did you always, I mean, secretly or overtly want to be an entrepreneur?
It's funny. I really, really, really wanted to do that my whole life, and then I think through the PhD, they beat it out of me. I think, yeah, and then I started to think like, hey, I just want to do something I like. I just want to do things that I enjoy. I want to build beautiful things,
Yeah.
and we won this competition at Stanford, this entrepreneurship competition. They gave me $20,000, and then that founded the company. One thing led to another. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, that was really like I think what I'm trying to say is I always thought that's what I wanted, and I think it was like unfulfilled ego in some ways that was driving it. And
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
some point, I kind of moved on from it. I was like, you know what, I'm happy doing whatever it is that I find, where I find that I'm creating good impact and something positive. And I ended up doing this entrepreneurship thing, which has been a great journey for the
Yeah.
last, what is it, 8 or 9 years at this point.
But I think that's, I mean, given that I think when you're not at work, you're doing quite a lot of outdoors activities and high adrenaline sports. Is that right?
I don't know about high adrenaline, right? I climb mountains, um, so that's fun. Um, uh, yeah, I've always had this. I grew up in it because I grew up in the Lebanese War, I think. So I think the intensity of experience is something that I like seek.
Yeah.
And so I like these like very large, fear-inducing or very large kind of, looming challenges, right? Where you're like, well, it's really hard and I'm really tiny in this really big thing I'm up against.
But it's all about the management of risk, I imagine, and all that as well. That's a large part of getting involved in mountaineering, and knowing what risks you're able to take.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm similar with the entrepreneurship. I think that if you do it right, then the risks are quite manageable. Like I always go with guided tours, and I look at all the statistics, and it's really, it's pretty darn safe. Like it starts to approach, driving in a car kind of risk.
Well, let's talk a bit about AI and the role and the risks of AI. I mean, we hear a lot about the potential and the benefits, but we also hear a lot about the fears. I mean, where are you on this? Should we worry about AI? There's been a lot in the press over the last few years about absolutely yes, it's a terrible thing, and absolutely no. Where are you?
I think people underestimate or don't fully understand how ChatGPT works and what its limitations are. I think um, the technology will hallucinate. It's not a reasoning engine. It's not a logics engine. It's not good. It's not going to be good at math. I think people mistakenly think like, oh, well, if a human wrote an essay and they did one or two mistakes in it, like all I got to do is just train them a little bit. They're almost there, right? They're 95% of the way there. I don't think people understand that this technology just fundamentally has that as part of what it is. That 5% improvement. I have not seen it improve in the last 2 years, right? And so I'm not worried. I think I have some bad news for everybody in the sense that we had the industrial revolution, we had the digital revolution. This is the last 140 years, 130 years. Like here's a question, right? If it's suddenly so much faster for me to like do accounting or send a letter across the Atlantic or do structural analysis, right? Like why the bleep are we still working 40 hours a week? And my answer to that has been kind of a sad answer, which is I think we overestimate our role as producers in the economy and underestimate our role as consumers. And so what I think people like don't fully, I think, grasp is that the what was it, the Luddites, I think, with the loom, right? And they were like, oh, and then the printing press, the Gutenberg printing press, and then it was whatever it is, whatever innovation has come up, folks have been like, it's all over and we're never gonna have a job. Like those jobs had like everybody in society is still working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Even though like a lot of these jobs have been replaced, but the reason is I think that the economy just needs us to be consumers, and for us to be consumers, we need a job. And so I do not see AI as sort of overtaking the world and like, putting us out of a livelihood or killing us all. I don't think it's happening.
Let's talk a bit about the impact on the supply chain, the people that actually are going to be delivering the construction of the future. So what's your greatest personal frustration when it comes to accelerating the potential benefits from these kind of technologies, whether it's AI or whether it's just digitization of the construction process?
I think the biggest frustration I see, and this is kind of shared amongst a number of my startup founder friends, is that even when we solve the actual problem, so we go to the industry and this is we got problem X. So I got a friend of mine who runs a company that does progress updates and data capture, and we're having coffee. Some time ago, it was 6 months ago, 5 months ago, and he said, Rene, it's driving me nuts. I said, what is it? And he goes, we literally cracked it. We can literally tell them like, hey, your production rates for these tasks are actually Y, not X. And we can tell them that these tasks were completed on time, these tasks were not completed on time. Like we can do all that. And we go back to the industry and they don't care.
Right.
And so I guess that the frustration is in if we had a structured approach to solving the problem, or I should say maybe more structured, because it is structured today, more structured approach to solving the problem, I think it would be easier to build everything in all the tech on top of it.
Yeah.
The underlying process, the underlying way that we're doing it is still old school. And there's going to be a limitation to what these new technologies can do.
So what's stopping that? I mean, is it fear? Is it cost? Is it culture? Is it skills? Is it opportunity? Is it incentive? I mean, can you put your finger on what's stopping that?
We don't have a data model in our field. It's kind of insane. Like I had a computer scientist come to me from the Stanford computer science department, and he said, "Hey, I want to build software for construction." although that's not something you hear every day. And he said, "What book should I read? Like, tell me the book." Like he thought I would give him a book. And he's like, "Oh, I get how to model the problem of construction now." We don't have that.
Right.
And so I think as a field, one of the things we're going to need to do is actually come up with, here's a formulation of the problem, right? And here's a formulation of the problem, and here's how we think we should go about solving it. Because if we have that and we agree on it, then you'll be able to build a lot of interesting tech on it faster.
Right, yeah. Because there'll be a prescribed way that it's done at the moment, and when you've got a prescribed way of doing it, you can then make it, you can improve it, you can then build upon that and make it better. So I suppose sum it up for me. If AI is set to transform the sector, so given all these challenges, how should infrastructure professionals, how should they be preparing for this? Now, what should they be doing to make sure that they are ready to embrace this change?
I think listening to podcasts like yours is probably like the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. I think, if I was a young professional today, then I would listen to a few podcasts. That's the first thing I would do. And the other thing is I would just get on YouTube and just type in, how does a neural network work? How does AI work? How does an LLM work? What's a transformer? How does a vision model work? But literally these are like 5-10 minute YouTube videos, and I use them. I understand neural networks, I understand machine learning, I understand, all these stuff, but like, what is the latest in, LLMs, right? That's kind of been in these things. So, and spending, I'm not kidding, like spending 30 minutes perusing this stuff is worth its weight in gold.
So just upskilling yourself, making sure you're aware of those things.
And then I often say that the general contractor of the future is going to be successful based on how well they can identify, evaluate, and integrate existing technologies.
Right.
So the startups of the world, like ours, I kind of ask myself, like, why does Alice exist? Like, some of these construction companies have hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. And what I realized is we're the outsourced R&D departments of these large companies.
Which is why I asked you earlier, where do you see it going? So, finally, I suppose, where do you see Alice and businesses like Alice truly transforming the sector? Is it by being embedded into these larger companies, or is it by continuing to, I suppose, to hover above and sprinkle stardust over them?
That decision is made by the market. Right. And what the market has decided is that it is more economically efficient to take the R&D out of these large corporations, separate it out, slap the title startup on it, have the venture capitalists fund these at a high risk, because whatever the statistics are, 1 in 1,000 actually make it, right? And then now that it's a high risk endeavor that not a lot of people succeed at, then basically work with the ones that are the winners. And once in a while, there's a company that's good enough that gets bought out.
So just to be clear, though, you are available for sprinkling of stardust.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. AliceTechnologies.com. You got an infrastructure job, we are the software for it. If you got a P6 schedule and you're tired of manually like wrestling it, you could, if you're the kind of person that loves redrawing arrows and spending till 8, 9, 10 p.m. in the office, we are not the tool for you. If you want to go home and see your kids or your partner, we should definitely chat.
Rene, thanks so much for joining me today. It's a huge and really exciting, really scary topic, to be frank. But thanks for sharing your thoughts. I'm sure what I'll do is in the show notes I'll put some background information around your backstory, etc., to fill in the gaps in terms of where you come from. But thanks very much for joining me today to share your thoughts on a really, really interesting topic.
Anthony, thanks so much for having me, and I hope your listeners have a good day.
Good stuff. Thanks, Rene. That's all we've got time for, unfortunately, today. But we've got more on the Infrastructure Podcast in the pipeline, and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find background information and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again to Rene. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.